Welcome to A Little Bit Radical, a business podcast from Standing on Giants. I'm Rob, your host. Join me as I meet people and organisations who are doing things differently, challenging the status quo and, yes, might just be a little bit radical. If you don't have people, you don't have a business. So making sure your people are performing to the best of their ability is one of the safest investments you can make. Today, I'm speaking to Augusta Vivian, founder and CEO of Higson Consulting. Higson are a people consultancy, improving teams' communication, confidence and leadership through training, coaching and facilitating. Their work ranges from helping Ticket Tailor with cultural transformation to delivering global leadership training with Schroders. They're a certified B Corp and give 20% of their profits to charity every year. Let's find out the secret to building a thriving culture of high-performing, happy people. Augusta, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rob. Thank you so much for having me.
Augusta, if you are a little bit radical and you're on our podcast, so we know you are, what do you think in your early life set you up for that?
It's funny, Rob, because I didn't really consider myself radical. And when we were discussing this, I had to do some thinking of what it is that made me radical. And I think I've got a combination of values that from an early age influence my approach to life, to work, and may well come together to create what some people might perceive as radical. So there's 4 values, really. The first is fun. Surely the most important thing in life is to have fun. So I always think everything we do should be fun. For example, almost exactly 4 years ago, my husband and I got married, and when we were doing all the wedding planning, one of the questions we always asked was, is this going to bring more fun when we're making any decision? And although I do say so myself, it did make for a very fun wedding and a very happy day. And if we think about work, we're going to be working for 40 plus years. And so it's my strong belief that we're actually all entitled to have fun at work. Second one is kindness, and this shouldn't really be radical. Treating people with kindness and making decisions through that really kind lens, thinking about how this decision and every decision we make will impact people personally. And the third one's curious. So I have 4 very inspiring sisters, and growing up with them, they were always new people in the house, new things to explore, a lot of noise, a lot of fun. And I've always been very curious and fascinated by people. And that probably always been that annoying person that asks the question that other people aren't asking. And apparently, according to my sisters, I've been doing this pretty much since I learned to speak. And the final one is stubborn, which I think also comes from my sisters and a big family. I guess you have to be stubborn. They are 4 of the most amazing, inspiring, powerful women I know. And to be able to be part of that, you have to be a bit stubborn. So I think that combination of not just being stubborn, but being curious with the stubbornness means that almost on a daily basis, I'm looking at what I'm being stubborn about and reflecting that and updating it. Because I don't think stubbornness is about doing the same thing over and over, but actually being stubborn and reflecting on what those things are. And I suppose, linking back to early life, these values have always perhaps been there through the role models of my parents, my sisters, and growing up, one of my best friends was my great aunt, who was 60 years older than me, but she really did role model radicalness. So in her generation, she set up a business, she never followed the status quo, and she definitely had these 4 values. She was incredibly stubborn, brilliantly fun, kind, and curious. So I think it's the combination of these values that perhaps other people might perceive as being a bit radical.
But they really shouldn't be, should they? I mean, the way you spoke about fun, that's one of the best ways I've heard anyone kind of sum it up. I love the idea of having an entitlement to fun. I love that. And the way that you made decisions for your wedding through that lens as well. And that's actually what I'd like to pick up on, because thank you for sharing your personal values. I think this is a really interesting thing for people to do, that internal work to uncover or define your personal values. But then what you've demonstrated is why you would bother doing that, which is not only to understand kind of what's important to you, but to help you make decisions. So when you're actually making decisions as a person, as a leader, being able to use your values as a guiding force. Can you talk to us a little bit about how much work has it taken you to define those 4 values? Is it something that you just did because I asked you a question in the podcast, or has it been a much longer process?
It's been a much longer process. It's something I'm really quite passionate about, my values, and I'm quite strict with sticking to them, not just in everything, that golden thread. And I think when I ask friends and family, they often give me feedback and share that I am very strong on my values, from the tiny detail to the big decisions. What I decide to eat, what I decide to spend my money on, what I decide to do, what I decide to make decisions at work. I'm always thinking about what are my values guiding this. So as I mentioned, that curiosity, I suppose my values have changed probably over time. And when I look back, I'm saying these are the 4 values I've always had, but probably more likely those values have moved over time. And I do spend a lot of time thinking about them. And my husband is also very values driven. So we spend a lot of time thinking about what our values are. Actually, my godmother, who said to me, the most important thing in life is to find people with shared values. And she shared that with me many years ago. And so perhaps she is to credit for why I've thought about my values quite a lot.
You've spoken about your partner, you've brought him up a couple of times already. And I think having a values match with your life partner could even be the most important thing that could help you weather other differences that you might have in personality or communication style. Would you agree with that?
100%. Absolutely. It was my godmother's advice, and it's the advice that I would give to anyone else.
Tell us a little bit more about your great aunt. What business was it that she set up? And that sounds like it was quite radical.
Very radical. There were many things that she did that were very radical. She set up an antiques business. So she travelled all over looking for rare antiques and then created a space where she could show and share those. She also created a business as a tour guide. So as a woman on her own, she travelled around the country taking individuals around different cities of the UK, touring them and giving them history and knowledge. She's no longer with us, sadly, but I found the other day her cue cards of each city and the notes that she'd made, and it was amazing reading through those. But thinking about being a woman on her own, setting up these businesses to make other people's lives better is really quite inspiring.
Completely. And I'm sure that gave you a lot of fortitude. Your stubbornness when you were coming to setting up your own business, you'd seen a mentor in your life do it before, and that must have been very helpful.
Definitely. And as I said, the other things as well, she was one of the kindest people I know. She was always thinking about other people, and she probably taught that to me from an early age as well.
You spoke about how you think your values might have shifted slightly as you've got older. So let's move on to the next question we always ask, which is, as an adult, do you think you've become more radical or less radical? And what's been behind that?
I think I'm definitely willing to be more radical now. For example, at the beginning of my career, I remember being told what I had to wear to be successful, and I listened.
Seriously?
I changed what I wore. Yeah. I bought a fancy laptop bag. I wore heels, skin-coloured tights, all these things that I was told I had to do. But I'm no longer interested in that. I'm not interested in people who will consider me credible if I'm wearing a pinstripe pencil skirt and heels. And so I guess that change of listening to everything around you and doing what you're told to actually thinking what's best.
And I bet you found that you're having more meaningful relationships in your work, bigger impacts by being that more authentic Augusta, right? Surely.
Yeah, of course. I think we should all be authentic to ourselves. And I guess that comes through in the stubbornness. I'm stubborn in my authenticity sometimes. When I set up Higson, I had about 100 people giving me advice on what I should do, and I should do this and I should do that. And still do have lots of people. And often they seem to be centred around revenue and profit. But rarely did I hear people sharing what I could do to make Higson an amazing and unique place to work. And I think that made me want to be more radical. We've spoken about values being really important. I hold myself accountable to ensure that those values are as a golden thread through everything at Higson and in my personal life. So when I hear someone say something like, we can't do that, my question is, well, have we tried? And I guess I'm not afraid of this failure of challenging the status quo, giving it a go. And I think keeping perspective on life really helps with that. We've already spoken about it, but I'm incredibly lucky with my husband that he is very actively encouraging of what I do and helping me talk through challenges. And I think that helps me stay and be more radical.
It's a common theme on this podcast, actually, that the people around us give us a kind of security to be radical, to try new things. That's coming through a lot in what you're saying to me.
That's a great way of saying it.
Yeah, definitely. And you've brought up Higson now, so tell us all about Higson, what you do, and why you're so passionate about that work.
Well, you introduced it beautifully at the beginning. We are focused on helping people grow and develop, and we do this through 3 lenses. So we'll go into a company and we will help them achieve and become a more inclusive, happy, productive workplace. And the three lenses that we look at is on an individual level. So individually, how can you make your people perform to their best? How can you make sure they're resilient, they're productive, they're happy? Secondly, on a teams level, so how can you make sure that teams are working effectively together, adapting, identifying each other's styles, strengths? And then thirdly, the biggest circle and lens that we focus on is leadership and culture. So how can you create a really amazing culture? And a lot of this comes from leadership. So we'll look at recruitment, we'll look at onboarding, we'll look at all the different training that happens throughout employees' lifespan, and we'll help build that cultural transformation, and doing that a lot through leadership programs. And we do all of this through a psychological lens. So we look at people and development and leadership, and we root it in the psychological theory.
Yes, because you have a background as a psychologist or studying psychology, I understand.
Yes, definitely.
So, Augusta, what are the common blind spots that businesses face when it comes to their culture and their people being productive and happy?
As a consultant and going into many different companies across different sectors, we see a few themes really of what these blind spots might be. I think that over-focusing, like we've mentioned before, on short-term or the short-term revenue goals, rather than looking at that big picture of what are we really trying to achieve? Why are we here? That almost creates this blind spot of being afraid to try new things, being afraid of failure, and not creating that thinking time to do this, to make change. The biggest challenge that I see with leaders of not being innovative and not being radical is that they are not creating the time to think about it. And I think that's the biggest blind spot, is that we are so productive and we're so organised and we're doing all these things back to back to back. And then we're not creating time just to stop and think, why am I doing this? What are we doing? What are we trying to achieve in the long run? Are people enjoying what they're doing? Are we making the world a better place? All the things that you might stop and think about. And what I see when I'm coaching leaders is that they often don't create this space in their life. They're jumping from one thing to the next without creating space to think about what those blind spots might be. It's not that there is one blind spot, it's that we're not making time to think about the blind spots that are stopping us from making our cultures better, our people better, the work we're doing better, our lives better.
So that would be a big piece of advice to any leader listening, which is carve out that space. Is that a lot of what you help leaders with, I imagine, through your coaching sessions, creating that space and that psychological safety for them?
Definitely, yeah. On the coaching, and importantly, just getting them to take holiday and take time away from the office. I mean, I personally do some of my best thinking when I'm walking around the countryside. A new idea will pop into my head and I'll chat it through with whoever I'm walking along with. And that's how some of my best ideas and thoughts have come about. And I think sometimes we don't feel like we have permission to take time off and to do nothing or be bored or whatever the things are that actually create that thinking space. So not only do I create the space in the coaching sessions, of course, actually on a very simple level is getting leaders to take some time away on holiday or on afternoon off or however it might be, really to think.
One of the biggest keys to well-being, from what I've seen, from what I've personally experienced, now I'm not a workplace well-being expert, but I have worked in a lot of places and I do reflect quite deeply on it, is giving your people permission to stop working is ultimately what it comes down to. Whatever programs you're putting in, whatever resources you're making available, but just saying that, do you know what, if it gets too much, you can stop working is incredibly powerful, and the most powerful thing that I've personally seen. What do you think about that? Is that your experience too, or are there more things at play?
I absolutely love your language, Rob, of giving permission, and I totally agree with it. We at Higson have an unlimited holiday policy, and I know a few companies do this, and it is really, really effective and powerful for the reason that you're sharing, is we give people permission to take time off when they need it. And if you have that limited amount of holiday days, you're protecting them and you want it to be the most special moment off or a really amazing fun holiday, which is important, absolutely. But if all your time off is like that, then again, you're not creating space for thinking, reflection, rest. And so we have unlimited holiday policy, but I actually sit down with my team and go through the calendar with them to book that holiday in. Because if you just say unlimited holiday, actually you find people don't book it in. So we make a very conscious effort to make sure people are putting in holiday and do take that time off away. But, benefits family, friends, partners. And it also is important for productivity when people come back to the office. They're firing better, they're thinking more, they're more productive when they come back to the office. And so it's benefit as well for the business.
Thank you for sharing that, Augusta. And I think the most exciting thing from that was that you sit down with your team and make sure that they take that holiday. Because that's the biggest criticism of unlimited holiday. We're lucky enough to have that at Standing on Giants as well. And there's a lot of thoughts around it that it, for some types of businesses, it can't work and it doesn't work, or it wouldn't work at our agency. Or that's ultimately because businesses have not been willing to do what you have done and actually embed a cultural kind of guide, actually just make them take it. Right?
You honestly do have to sometimes make them take it.
Yeah.
We do shout outs in our team. So every other week in our team meeting, we switch between doing a rose, thorn, bud from the week, something great, something exciting and a challenge. And then the next week we do shout outs. We shout out people in the team. And last week I shouted out someone in my team for taking holiday, because it can always be tricky for that individual. He has been brilliant at taking lots of holiday, but came from a culture in the previous company where the holiday wasn't permitted. Yeah, there were holiday days, but you actually weren't really meant to take them. And so changing that culture with him of actually taking lots of brilliant holiday.
Augusta, we've got Christmas coming up. We've spoken about the importance of taking time off, empowering your team to take time off. What do you say to your team when you send them out over Christmas?
Similar to the strategy of taking unlimited holiday, something that conscious of around Christmas is that Christmas itself is a really busy, intense, in a fantastic way, time with family and with friends. And sometimes if you only take that little bit of time off around Christmas, you don't get the benefit of relaxing, switching off, thinking, doing the things you maybe want to do rather than the things perhaps you have to do around Christmas time. So something I sit down with my team ahead of Christmas is looking at how do they want that Christmas break to look? Do they want to take that time off at the start of January as well as just that time over Christmas, so that they do come back feeling refreshed and renewed, and they get to do the things they want to do as well. Perhaps it's hobby things that they want to do which they're not going to get time to do at Christmas itself. So ensuring that people are taking the time they need and the time they want around Christmas, not just only those little days over Christmas.
I think that's great advice. In the days before I had a young child, I always used to have a 2-week holiday at the start of January. And when we could afford it, we'd go somewhere that was hot at that time. It was absolutely amazing to properly rejuvenate at the start of the year, as you say, after the madness of Christmas. And then I came back with a lot more energy. So I think that's solid advice, and take more holiday. It's always great, isn't it? The final thing on holiday, this isn't the workplace holiday podcast, but it's a great topic, isn't it? I mean, I'm just thinking about what you were saying now as well about when you have that limited resource of holiday, how much you kind of need to intensely protect it, and you might place too much expectation on what that time away is going to be. I'm thinking about, we happen to be recording this after the wettest July on record, and you think about the thousands of people that will have been taking that very precious protected time out to go camping in Wales, with dreams of like sun-drenched mountain walks, and it will have been an ordeal. And the idea that then they have to come back and they've not got that opportunity again this year to take a similar amount of time off, that's going to be horrendous for well-being and bad for productivity ultimately.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly those two things, productivity and well-being. And if we don't have a happy team, what's the point? Aren't we, as we said, entitled to have fun at work? And don't we have responsibility as leaders to create a workplace where people do have good well-being and are enjoying their work? And of course, that all leads to more productive workplace that are more profitable and do better work. And we know that it leads to business benefit as well.
I love how you've been able to demonstrate how you really live your values and practice what you preach. So a limited holiday being one. What are some other examples of how you've implemented a kind of a culture of personal and professional development at Higson that you then try and take to your clients? Could you give us a couple of examples there?
So where we help companies on their maybe cultural transformation, we've helped quite a few companies create their values. So they might have outdated values or no values at all. And that's where we feel we can have the biggest impact, because we can go in and help a company define what they want those values to be. And yeah, we can all have any words on our website that are saying, these are our values. I think the most important thing is that underneath the values, you have the specific behaviours. So what does this value look like? And that's what we help our clients do, is build not only the values, but the behaviours underneath. We have these at Higson, and we then go and help our clients build these. And by having these behaviours, that then helps them to create the culture that they want to create, which might be a change. I mean, we're going to, as businesses, probably in the next 5, 10, 20 years, we're going to have to make more change than we have in the last 100 years. So updating and refining and reviewing values and behaviours is a really important thing to do as a business, and then to be able to then embed that through those different behaviours.
I love that. Define the behaviours under the values. Values can be quite abstract concepts, especially for people who might not be involved in the creation process and benefit from the energy of that room where, the words were put up on the whiteboard. And so having a way for people all the way down the business to say, okay, we have a value about curiosity, and that might look like, has this person brought a new idea to the table in the last month, 2 months, or whatever. Suddenly that becomes way more practical, doesn't it? And that means we can do something with it. I'm sure they get a lot of value out of that, your clients.
That's something from a recent exercise that we've done with clients. The feedback that we've been given is that we are very practical. So whether we're building a leadership program or we're helping define the values and the behaviours, everything we do is very practical. Because of them being rooted in psychology, our aim is to create positive behaviour change and lasting positive behaviour change. So by being really practical about these things, so like you say, actually having the behaviours under the values is what's really practical. And so everything we do, the feedback we've had from clients, is that the reason Higson feels different and unique is that when we come in, when we're helping, we're creating fresh new perspectives and ideas, and we're doing it in a really practical way.
It's quite a thing to found and run your own business. And so I hope you have time to look back. What are you most proud of professionally?
Well, I suppose you've already touched on it there, Rob. It's setting up Higson and doing that organically. So we didn't raise or borrow any money. We grew from the very beginning sustainably. And of course, like you, becoming a B Corp was an amazing moment, and really, really proud of that, to donating 20% of our profit to charity and growing the most incredible team who I love spending time with every single day. And I really do just love coming in and having fun with the team. Picking perhaps one moment would be when I was given the Kind Leader Award as one of the 50 leading lights in the UK. I was really proud to be recognised as a kind leader. As you know, it's one of my values.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations for winning that award. Well deserved. And it sounds like your team have a great boss to come in and work for. If there's someone listening to this who's a leader and is looking to kickstart professional development of their team or start on this values piece, what do you think is the first thing they need to do?
I'd suggest that they looked at their leadership rhythm. So how are they setting up the rhythm of how they're communicating with their team or the wider business or the whole business, depending on what role that individual is. So from whether it's how are you setting the strategy? How are you building the strategy? Are others involved? Are the team involved? We at Higson, we go away for a strategy away stay where we build that strategy together as a team, as a leadership team, and we make it clear and open and transparent for everyone to see what is our strategy, where are we going, how are we going to get there? And then we look at this strategy quarterly as a full company, and we are very transparent and open about the numbers as well. Where are we? Where do we want to get to? How can we get there? You mentioned, one of the things we do is we give 20% of our profit to charity. So the better we do, the more money we can give to charities. That's something else we look at as well. And by having this openness on strategy, that's a really brilliant starting point. So do you have a strategy? Have you made thinking time to think about the strategy? And have you communicated and cascaded it? And then what are the other points throughout the year that you're reviewing that or creating this culture? So for example, team meetings. Do you have regular team meetings that are not just about going through projects and to-do lists, that are about learning, that are about sparking curiosity, that are about recognising the team, looking at successes, looking at failures too. What didn't go well? Why did that not go well? Creating really brilliant team meetings that have all those different elements. And then one-to-ones. One of the Gallup shows one of the most important things is that we're having those one-to-ones with our team. Sometimes we can have reasons to not do them. I sit next to them every day. I don't need to have a structured one-to-one. actually it's in those one-to-ones that you can help create this behaviour change and this cultural transformation if you do want to create it, where you give honest, radical candour and feedback. It's something that we do. We all give feedback to each other quarterly in all directions of individuals that you've been working with, and that creates this culture of open honesty. Those are some things that I would suggest is look at your leadership rhythm. Have you set up the strategy? Have you got team meetings that are reviewing that and bringing about that culture change? And have you got regular one-to-ones to share that radical candour, that feedback, and create a supportive, psychologically safe space for the individual to share new ideas and thoughts with you?
It's quite a robust framework when you put it like that. You have quite a lot of kind of scaffolding to make this happen, but it's very easy to slip, as we all know. I'm sure you'd have lots of people signing up for you to jumpstart their team meetings. That's for sure, making them more fun.
We have had some good feedback on making team meetings a bit more exciting, fun, and actually everyone goes away motivated, re-energised, and is a really good thing to invest in.
I think we've all been in team meetings that have had that effect and ones that have had the opposite effect. It's quite palpable, actually. So we've talked about how you give 20% of your profits to charity. What interests me about that is that you seem to have quite a strong background in volunteering and giving back, and you've brought that into the structure of your business. No surprise there. I'd love to know what you get out of volunteering, how important it is to you, how it aligns with your values, but then also what that does for the business and the kind of the rationale for a business giving away that much of your profits every year.
Not only do we give 20% of our profit to charity, which we have been doing since the beginning, even when it was a bit tight in the first years of starting, but alongside that, we actually really support the charities with the work that they're doing. So we have 3 key charity partners: Cool Earth, who are an absolutely amazing charity tackling climate change and climate injustice, and we run their training for them, so their leadership training and team training. We work with Free to Be Kids, who do some really powerful work, taking kids away for respite weeks and holidays. And personally, I've been volunteering with them since they started. They're an absolutely amazing charity. And we've actually, the last 2 years, managed to persuade the founders to run a fundraising event for them, which was an incredible celebration of the work that they're doing. We had the kids actually up on the stage talking about the power of the charity, which not only boosted their own confidence, but also helped our team look at that and think, we're helping these children, these individuals, to build their confidence, which is really powerful. And thirdly, we work with You Make It, who are a charity working with underemployed women. We run their resilience program. So not only do the team see the percentage of profit that we're giving, they get to actively be involved in these charities through running the training, through helping. We all as a team spent a lot of time making this fundraiser happen. Last year and this year, we raised £35,000 for them this year. And the team can be involved in that. We all get so much back from those interactions, from seeing what people are doing in the world to make it a better place, to feeling part of creating that change. And with Free to Be Kids, the actual volunteering and going away with the kids, I think has completely influenced so many of my decisions in life and my values as well, where you're getting to interact with the most incredible young people who challenge you and who hold you accountable to all sorts of different things and have a completely different perspective on life. And I think that is what is really powerful about creating volunteering opportunities for your team. You help them widen and broaden their perspectives, interact with all sorts of different people that helps them be more innovative, kinder, and understand greater what's going on in the world and different challenges and issues. It helps from a engagement perspective. As we know, there's lots of research that shows that. It helps from enhancing the perspective of the individuals, and it helps from a morale and happiness and fun. We have such fun making that fundraiser happen and actually running it on the night and making it a brilliant event. By creating these opportunities, there are so many knock-on benefits. We've also created a foundation where we give individuals who wouldn't normally have the chance to have access to training. And that's something where we thought, what do we do that we can easily provide and share with others? And I think that's what's so exciting about businesses making a social impact is, what do you currently do really well? How can you use that to make an impact? And for each business, that's going to look really different. I think that's what's really exciting, and that's motivating, that's engaging. and it creates a better culture for everyone.
Thank you for one of the most compelling arguments for implementing company volunteering and charity programs, Augusta. That's very strong, very strong.
Something I'm, as you know, very passionate about. So, yeah.
Of course, yeah. So you're obviously someone that's always looking to improve with your business, always looking at different ways that you can meet your clients' needs. What's next for Higson? What have you got coming up that you're excited about?
Well, we've actually just built an accredited carbon literacy training course, and we've all at Higson gone through that course.
Oh, wow.
Which was it was really an amazing day of learning and understanding more about the climate crisis. And the goal is to become a carbon literate organisation. So we've all had to create pledges of what we're going to do individually and as a team, and at Higson, what we're going to do. We've submitted those to the Carbon Literacy Project, and if our pledges are good enough, we will become an accredited carbon literate organisation.
Fantastic. Carbon literacy. Break down that term for us.
Essentially, it's becoming literate at talking about the climate crisis. So carbon emissions, food, energy, all the different elements, weather. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and this course focuses on the facts. There's a lot of emotion mixed into climate crisis. So this teaches us the actual facts. What is happening right now? What are some of the things that could help? And so the day is built with that knowledge, logical knowledge. And then in the afternoon, the last couple of hours, you spend the time thinking about what can you do as an organisation to help. And any organisation can go to the Carbon Literacy Project and find out more about becoming a carbon literate organisation. And our goal is that we're going to start helping others and our clients with becoming carbon literate organisations. Because once you've got the knowledge, you've got that power then to be able to talk about it in a really credible way. And more importantly, and most importantly, why you do the course, is then every decision we make is looking through that carbon lens. So should we go down route A or route B? Let's also look at the carbon impact of both of those. And if you then have that golden thread all the way through every decision, you can make a greater impact.
I love that. So taking the same approach to the values and the goals for your workplace culture, but this time with carbon and reducing your impact or limiting your impact as an organisation. And it sounds like this is a great antidote to greenwashing, right? It's like start with the facts and then talk about the kind of meaningful and real impact that you can create rather than something audacious net zero target that no one knows what it is and no one knows how to actually work towards it, right?
Yeah, it can actually be really difficult to navigate the world with greenwashing and these things that people share with us and tell us that aren't rooted in fact or are trying to create division. And so by having the facts, you're then better able to identify greenwashing and make the right decisions.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for sharing that, Augusta. We're coming on to the final part of the conversation today, where I want to lift you out of your day-to-day. Augusta, if I asked you what would be a little bit radical change for the world that you would like to see, what would that be?
I'd like to see more kindness and more fairness. I mean, if we think about the climate crisis, because we've just been talking about that already, 50% of climate emissions come from the top 10% of earners in the world. And to be in this top 10%, you have to earn about $30,000 a year. So many of us in the UK fall into being in that top 10%. And if we all acted with fairness and kindness, I truly believe that we could actually tackle some of the biggest challenges that we're currently facing. If we were acting with kindness and with fairness, we would work together to not only tackle the climate emergency, but to also tackle every crisis that we're currently looking at and every challenge. As the World Health Organization said, developing countries are hit first and worst from the climate crisis, and yet they're contributing the smallest impact. And if we do take action, we know that it's beneficial for nature, for biodiversity, for people. It's also beneficial for businesses. Repairing the damage caused by climate crisis will cost us more than if we act now and prevent it. It's better for our well-being, it's better for our health. It's better to protect businesses. So climate change is just one example where kindness and fairness would help us make better decisions. This is just one of the many challenges that we're currently facing across the world. But the small decisions we make every day to the global ones, if we could all make those decisions with more kindness and more fairness, I believe we could tackle these challenges and make the world an even better place.
I completely agree with you, Augusta, as have many guests on this podcast. And I think we're fast finding the founding team of the radical kindness movement and the impact that could create. I'm very excited by. So we've reached the end of our conversation. It's been wonderful to speak to you, Augusta. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge. If there's someone listening who has a little bit of a radical idea for themselves, for their personal life, or for a business, an idea that they want to bring forward, but they don't quite know where to get started, what would you say to them?
Share it, talk about it, think about it. Find people around you that will listen, that will challenge you, that will give you honest feedback, and create a space where you can start brainstorming, discussing, thinking about it.
Thank you very much, Augusta. It's been amazing to speak to you, and I hope you enjoyed your conversation with us. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please follow us on your podcast platform. If you'd like to appear on A Little Bit Radical or have an idea of someone we should speak to, please email podcast@standingongiants.com or get in touch with me on LinkedIn. You can search Rob Fawkes or search Standing on Giants and you'll find me there. Thank you very much and speak to you next time.